Food has the power to unite. We might not agree if it should be made with high-protein ketogenic ice cream or low-sugar non-dairy yogurt, but we're all down to have a Sunday together. And that instinct has helped build an industry. My fear, though, is that, like this country, the business is becoming siloed, trumpeting division instead of uniting. We tear consumers apart instead of bringing them together. The carb lovers versus the gluten shunners, the grass-fed meat adherents versus the vegans. We're so convinced that our way is the right way that we tell the market that it's the only way and all others are wrong. With everything that you're juggling while running a business, why invest in starting a bigger dialogue? After all, you've just been educating consumers on things they need to know. Your sales have been rising. That category manager, who just happens to be a paleo CrossFitter, says he loves your keto chips. Everything is just great the way it is. But it isn't, not completely. And that's where we must strive to broaden the base. Right now, the food industry is red hot. The New York Times is writing features extolling the virtues of cauliflower. A plant-based meat company is launching an IPO. And not one, but two celebrities have launched kids' food lines. But what happens when the wind shifts? Some of us feel like it might be already. Some speakers today will say that this is a bubble. They'll say that our country's divisions will have economic ramifications that will affect interest rates, trade agreements, loans, and trickle down from there. Wallets will get tighter, and consumers will only spend on products they can't live without. Then there's the changing retail environment. This industry is so popular, it's launching thousands of new products every year. How many of these can really be on shelf, especially as those shelves shrink to become experiential laboratories? Sure, there's e-commerce with its endless aisles, but how many consumers really go to page 10 or 20 of the search results for tomato sauce? So to prepare for all of these situations, I implore you to think about how to maximize your consumer reach. The more people who embrace you, the more recession-proof you are. Yes, niches are great, but not if they wall consumers off rather than inviting them in. I'm sure a bit of this sounds a little doom and gloom, and that's certainly not the way we want to start our day. But to an extent, that's why you're here, so you can strategize on how to best face the challenges of the future. Now, this aside, maintain your unique qualities. Don't appeal to the lowest common denominator. Today, you'll hear about the power of focus, how to figure out who you are and who you're not. And that is great advice. But what successful food brands do, like the one speaking today, is find a way to help consumers join their tribe. It's about letting them in on your secret. You can't be everything to everyone, but you can have open arms to all. For that's what we need to do right now. Create one table where everyone is welcome to sit down and order. Now, let's talk about this table that is NOSH Live. On the menu, I've got a few housekeeping notes. Please do submit your burning questions to our speakers via text, tweet, or email. The information on how to do so is at the bottom of your agenda. As is the Wi-Fi password, which I'll let you in on a secret, is Taste Radio. Second, there's no need to take down every note. We'll be sharing all the presentations right after the event, and soon after that, we'll be posting all the videos to YouTube. In terms of our agenda today, as a bit of an overview, we'll have the morning sessions and then proceed to lunch. And after that, we'll have 2 breakout sets that you can choose from, followed by our sampling expo. And with that, as we talk about being welcoming, I want to introduce our first speaker who embodies the concept of being welcoming to consumers, Angie Bastian. I recently showed a picture of Angie to a friend, and their response was, "Oh, she looks just like her product." And when I asked what that meant, because clearly this was not a photo of a bag of popcorn, my friend replied, "Well, she looks kind." Now, what consumer doesn't identify with that? Now, perhaps she has a bit of advantage in that she and her line of snacks share a name. I mean, I'm not sure you can say Angie's without thinking Boom Chicka Pop or vice versa. But when the company started, it was simply a dream and a bag of kettle corn. So here to talk about her brand's evolution and how they got from one to the other, please welcome Angie Bastian. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you, Carol. Can I tell you, to have someone say that I'm kind was like the best compliment I would ever want to get.
They were like, she's so warm and welcoming and happy, and that's exactly the way I feel when I eat that bag of popcorn.
Good.
I mean, she did say then she eats the entire bag of popcorn, so then she doesn't, feel as warm and welcoming. But that's a great way to start. So what made you want to be the queen of popcorn? How did the company come about?
Well, I didn't intend to be the queen of popcorn, but I guess I'm embracing that right now. So I was a psychiatric nurse practitioner. My husband was a school teacher, and we needed a little extra money to send our kids to college because we hadn't started a fund yet. So we bought a big kettle and started popping kettle corn on street corners and fairs and festivals in 2001. And we wanted to teach our children how to work. We wanted them to work alongside of us. We wanted them to contribute to their own, college fund. And, it started as a part-time mobile food unit in 2001.
And I love how you picked kettle corn specifically, because it was so, I think you said it was so cold at the games and it was nice and warm.
Yeah, well, so we popped at Minnesota Vikings home games and hockey games and high school baseball and softball, and and it was an easy, simple food. I grew up on a farm. We had popcorn every Sunday night while we watched Disney, as I was growing up. And so we thought, well, we can do kettle corn. It's easy. We thought it was easy. Like, we can't mess it up. Let's do that.
Even at the start, though, you were Angie's Kettle Corn.
Yeah.
There was no product without your name from the very beginning. So what made you want to put your name on the product? Why was that the path you took?
Well, we had no business experience, no marketing experience, nothing. We just had this thing we were doing part-time, and when we got an opportunity to sell in grocery, like Lund's and Byerly's in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area, they said, you gotta put a name on the product. You gotta give it a name, you gotta label it, you gotta brand it. And we were like, okay, like, what is popcorn called? So we went to the grocery stores, we went to online at the time, so that would have been 2004, and just looked to see what popcorn was called. And at that time, on the shelf, it was Orville Redenbacher, it was Vicks, it was Cracker Jack, Dale and Thomas, Harry and David. And I just turned to my husband and said, where are the popcorn women? There are no popcorn women here. And he goes, oh, you're right. Like, I was like, we deserve to have shelf, like equal representation in the popcorn shelf. And he said, well, let's just name it Angie's. And I was like, fine. That's fine. And never realizing that it would be ubiquitous in the marketplace and, eventually my name would be out there. But I don't think entrepreneurs necessarily think about that far in the future. And so I was fine with it. Like, okay, it's Angie's.
Were you worried that you might alienate male consumers when you kind of took that direction?
No, because I thought male like women. I mean, they'll like us better because we're named Angie. That's what I thought.
But at the same time, it's a very proactive statement, where the popcorn women, but were you trying to be a female-centric brand?
No. Oh, God, no. We had no idea. We just were, And then somebody said, oh, you have a female-centric brand. We're like, oh, yeah, okay. At that time, we were like, okay, yeah, it's my name. That's what we're doing.
So fast forward a bit, you decided you wanted to expand.
Yeah.
So how did you decide you needed to be more than just kettle corn?
Well, we started growing, like, unbelievably. We got, in the upper Midwest, and, we just got more and more opportunity, and we were really just a one-product company at the time, and it was kettle corn. And you know, we attracted private equity because they were interested, and we didn't really understand what that was about. We were just like, well, what did they want? You know, I don't know. Because we had been in business for, I don't know, 8, 9 years about, and we were profitable, and we were sort of a family business, and we didn't really understand because we had not been exposed to that world. So we had someone come to us and sit down and say, this is what it could be. Are you interested in that? And we said, yeah. And so we got a partnership with Sherbrooke Capital out of Boston at the time, and Corey Comstock was our sort of lead person and just smart and helpful, and took a partnership educational approach with us. And, you know, we started growing even bigger with broader distribution, helped us build a professional sales team, and we were like, wow, we can really do something bigger than what we even imagined. And then competition started coming into the marketplace, and we were like, okay, and for me, I always wanted to be more than just kettle corn, and so we were sort of bound by the kettle corn name. And so at the time, they helped us figure out who were our creative resources out there to help us look at it in a different way. And so for me, that was contextual, going back to the shelves and seeing what was on the shelf at the time, and then finding a place that was satisfactory to me and to us to grow in a different way.
So you realized you had to expand the product line, or you wanted to expand the product line. Did the fact you were going to have to change the brand go hand in hand with that? Did you realize that you couldn't do one without the other?
Well, we knew our current name was confining. Like, it just didn't resonate with consumers. We couldn't be broader, wanted to be bigger. We started dreaming bigger, and you know, kettle corn at the time was always just sugared popcorn, sugared salt popcorn, and that's fine. But I didn't, like, I eat it, but I don't eat it every day. You know, I would eat regular sea salt popcorn every day as a small snack, and I was like, we got to figure out a way, because it just is confusing. So going back to the stores, I started looking, and this would have been 2011, and we lived on the natural and organic snack shelves, and because that's where at the time, that's where the grocery stores put us, because they had low volume in that area, and we were sort of a high velocity item, and we drove traffic to the snack aisle at that time in the stores that we were in, and we were happy to be there. But I looked around at the way that products looked during that time, and it was very serious and very masculine in its color palette, including us. We were like a very serious looking product, and then I looked, you know, or there were these sort of adolescent looking products that were appealing to kids, and then the ones that to me looked like that they were aimed at the female consumers were all sort of diet oriented, or looking at like sort of an approach that marketers were using, like, oh, she's on a diet, so this will be her food. And I was just like, you know, for me, at that point, I was like, talk to me. I had never really realized it. And then I started looking at all the way that marketers talk to women through food. And I was personally annoyed by it. And so I said, we are not going to do that. Like, we are just not going to do that, and we're going to come up with something to show up on shelves, celebrate the feminine, like show up loud and proud, everybody welcome, not telling anybody what to do or how to be or how to look, and celebrate, and show up with some energy and joy. Like, food should be joyful. Let's celebrate that. And so we worked with a creative agency that helped us rename, and we launched that yellow bag sea salt popcorn in May of 2012. By August of 2012, that one SKU was our #1 selling SKU after 9 years of business. And so we were like, oh, somebody gets us, you know?
I mean, but it's interesting to me, when you first launched that product, you kept the old product on shelf as well.
We did.
So why have two wildly different looking products on shelf?
Well, we were scared, right? Like, we didn't know. We wanted to be relevant in the marketplace. We wanted to compete. And so we just launched this one product. We didn't really necessarily have the long-term plan or understood exactly what we were doing, but we wanted to test it. And we had the opportunity to test it in a lot of places, and Target happened to be one of the sort of retail partners with us that was willing to test it because they loved the brand, they loved the look, and you know, we just weren't sure how it would do or if anybody would even, you know, receive it well because it looked so different. It didn't have food on the front. It had Boom Chicka Pop, and what is that? And so we were willing to live in that way until we saw the velocity results, and then we slowly started transitioning one bag at a time, or one SKU at a time, dressing it up in the Boom Chicka Pop colors, and then launching any new products in Boom Chicka Pop. And every time we did that, the same recipe, the same product in a different set of clothes turned 3 times velocity. And so then the answer was there. Consumers voted, the answer was there, and it took us about 2 years to transition one product at a time.
I mean, that can be a really scary thing to do. You touched on that a little bit.
Yeah.
But how did you kind of sit there and evaluate the risk of potentially losing this following you had with the risk of losing out on this opportunity that could be in the future?
Yeah, well, it was a risk, and we were scared, and that's why the kettle corn product was the very last one we switched, and in terms of the packaging. And I think we did lose some consumers, especially in the Midwest where we started. They were very attached to the old brand and the old packaging, but then we got distribution on the East and West Coast and places that never would have given us distribution in the other packaging. And they weren't all that interested in you know, what we had before, but when we would bring in the Boom Chicka Pop, and I will say that like, a lot of the buyers were sort of, and nothing against middle-aged men, but middle-aged men, and they were like, "Oh, what is this?" You know, like
your ears, middle-aged men.
I don't really know. I don't know. And then the support staff around those buyers would be like, "Oh, this is so cool. You got it." So all the women that were like support staff, they were like, and so we got distribution because of the women that surrounded some of these decision makers. When they were like, "We love it, let's," and it started showing up in social media, and so you know, we got a little help along the way, and so you know, and we just said, you know, the answer is there. I mean, at the time when we made that transition, we had about 20 million in business. You don't just give up 20 million of business, but then you know, it happened pretty quickly once everything transitioned, and it just took off like a rocket.
So I want to talk about the name Boom Chicka Pop specifically. How did you come up with that name? Like, was there a runner-up that you didn't go with that you can let us in on a little secret? It's such an unusual word. It's not something that comes to mind every day.
Well, there is a story behind it. So, you know, we used a creative agency, and they came up with 5 different names, and they were all boring, except this one they unveiled. It was Boom Chicka Pow Pow, and we all started laughing. You know, like Boom Chicka Pow Pow, you know. And there was immediate energy in the room, and we were, and it made us smile. You know, it just made us laugh, and we were like, we kind of like it. We think that's there. Our private equity group was like, oh, that's way too far out there. No, no, no. But I was like, there's got to be, you know, and so this was the day. These were the days when we all worked around like one table in one room, and we had a business analyst at the end of the table eavesdropping in on this marketing presentation. And after the creative agency left, he said, you know, Boom Chicka Pow Pow is 70s porn. and we were like, TC, how do you know this? And he goes, I watch Friends. And you know, like when they're teasing the girls, they go, boom, chicka, wow, wow. And we were like, oh, okay, we can't have 70s porn. You know, we can't have that. So, but we liked it. Everybody was talking about it. Everybody had energy around it. It was so exciting. And so we went back to these 24-year-old brilliant marketers and said, did you know? And they go, yeah, we kind of knew, but we wanted to test it. It was our you know, our dark horse, and we were hoping you were interested in it. And I said, well, fix it, please. You know, it can't be 70s porn, and please attach it to the product somehow. So they came back to us with Boom Chicka Pop, and we were like, that's it. Let's go. Give us the design, and that's how it came to be.
You also were kind of one of the first brands to take on this like color blocked, sort of bright, exciting packaging on shelf. Now it's everywhere, but at the time that was so revolutionary.
Because we loved it. It was pretty, it had energy, and I really wanted people to stop in front of it and go, wow, what is that? We wanted to elicit curiosity. We wanted to capture someone's attention. I had walked shelves at 6 a.m. in the morning in my local Hy-Vee and Cub and Lunds and Byerly's and Whole Foods, and it's one big blur on that snack aisle at the time, and I was like, I got to find a way. I mean, we didn't have money to do advertising or a whole lot of marketing on. Like, I had to have my package speak for me. I'm going to say it had to speak for us, and we needed to have high impact. And so, our creative agency delivered on that, and it was a risk to go out because the color was a custom color. It took us about 6 press checks to get it right. It didn't always come out right, but it just pleased me to see it on the shelf, and we were like, oh, it's so joyful and so welcoming. It brings a ray of sunshine to a very what I thought at the time was a very serious place, and just wanted some energy there.
And the packaging literally talks to the consumer. It has a conversation with them through the romance copy on the packaging. Who wrote that? Is that you on the packaging?
No, we used a copywriter, Ann West. Now you all know. She's so amazing. She's so smart and witty. And we gave her kind of how we want it. She did a lot of talking with us and understanding the brand. And we have little boomisms, on our. We just wanted it to have personality. We wanted it to be a dimensional product. We wanted it to speak more than just to its appearance. Just like women, we want you to see us for more than just our appearance. We want to be the whole thing, And so I wanted the package to be the whole thing, smart and witty and delicious and fun and beautiful, all in the same moment. And I think the dimensionality comes with the personality.
And it really does have such a strong personality. You feel like the popcorn is your friend that you're chatting with.
Well, popcorn is friendly food, right? It's pretty simple food. It's pretty close to its roots. It shouldn't make it too complicated. Just spice it up and make it fun.
What's your advice, though, to brands that maybe do have a more complicated product? Because not everyone here has a product that, is ketogenic, paleo, high protein, probiotic popcorn.
I don't know if I'm qualified to even say, I think that just follow your instincts, and your consumer base best, and what you want to project out into the world, and own it, love it, embrace it, celebrate whatever it is your product is, and there'll be other consumers out there that will recognize it. And that's what is so validating to, I think, entrepreneurs, is when they put their self and their love into their product and they put it out there and someone receives it and buys it. It's like, wow, it's an amazing thing that happens.
And speaking about that sort of wow moment, you kind of alluded to this a little bit, but when you showed it to your investors, they said, this is a little out there. How did you get your investors to come along with you on this journey and really convince them that this was the path?
Desperation is a good motivator. And if you want to be relevant in the marketplace and you're getting your butt kicked on shelf, you better do something pretty dramatic. And, competition is pretty fierce in the snack aisle and pretty fierce in popcorn. And, I think that was sort of an opportunity for us to say, okay, it's let's be bold, let's do it. And I think they understood that there was a way to do it, and they helped us do it. They got on board. I mean, they understood the situation in terms of how we remain relevant. And I think, thankfully, our investors had, their children were daughters, I'm like, your daughters and wife will love this. And they're the ones that are shopping. Take it home, test it out, see what they say. And they were like, wow, you're doing this? So, that's how we got sort of a broader buy-in from the investment group.
I love all these kind of like secondary players, the women in the background who helped Angie's become what it is. It's such an amazing story to hear.
We'll take help wherever we can get it, right? Like, that's entrepreneurs. You'll take positivity and help and support. Like, never turn that down. Like, always go, like, embrace it from every direction.
And you truly do embody that. We did an interview in a hotel, and you literally went out to your car and got bags of popcorn and brought them in for the hotel staff and were handing out popcorn to the front desk clerks where we did the interview. And everyone was so excited to get a bag of Angie's.
A popcorn. Yeah. We're lucky we're not selling computer chips. Yeah. I can give a lot of product away.
But I just thought that was such a great representation of embracing the joy and embracing happiness where you can find it. You know, no one, to me, not everyone would take the time to do that. And no one is too small for you to talk to.
No, I mean, the world is a big place and everybody counts, and you have to embody that behavior, I think, and I'm lucky that we have a platform to do that.
And sort of touching on that platform, I mean, so you sold the company. Mm-hmm. How, and that has given you an even bigger platform. So how important do you think this brand transition you made was to eventually selling the company?
I mean, it was paramount. It added value. We were in sort of popular culture on trend. We were driving some of that trend, which I feel grateful about. The Boom Chicka Pop brand is still beloved. I mean, we sold a couple of times, right? So we had a minority investment from Sherbrooke, a majority investment with a reinvestment by my husband and I with TPG at a TPG Growth in San Francisco. And then we sold to Conagra last October. And the popcorn category is growing at about 3% IRI. We're growing at 14% still. And this is after 17 years of business. So it still remains, and it's driving the category. It still remains very relevant. If we weren't able, at the bottom, at the end of the day, if your revenue isn't there, and your velocities aren't there, and the brand isn't beloved, and you don't have a tribe, it's hard for investors to invest, and it's hard to make that sale. But I think if you create something of value, people recognize it.
So looking back, I mean, after all this amazing success and continued success, is there anything you would have done differently?
I would have gotten more sleep. I mean, this last year has been really wonderful. Both my husband and I are sort of recovering, because, when you're in it, you're all in it. We were just all in it. And, we had a great team. Just all along the way. It was all of the people that, we didn't do it obviously by ourselves, but we worried in a way that I think most entrepreneurs or founders worry in a way that nobody else really understands unless you're doing it yourself, and you're wanting the right people, and when that all happens, it's an amazing thing, but you still worry, right? So maybe I would have worried a little less.
How about the brand and the redesign itself? Is there anything in that process you would have changed? Would you have, transitioned the line entirely sooner?
I don't know. I think the world is perfect as it is. I think I accept that, this is what we did. And, I'm fine with it. No regrets.
And kind of, with all your wisdom that you've built up now, is there something that you look and you're like, that was so the right move to make, and I'm so glad we did that, and at the time I didn't even realize, that was the right move to make?
Oh, goodness. We've had a lot of those pivotal moments. Yeah. And I will say the brand, switching, changing the name and the identity was a frightening experience, and a 2-year process. So that was scary, but pivotal, and just grateful that we did it.
Well, we are so grateful that you were able to join us here today and speak about your experiences with Angie's. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Carol. Yeah, I loved it. Thank you.